The light beyond the sea. The village of Ashmore seemed forgotten by time. Nestled between towering cliffs and the restless Atlantic Ocean, it was a place where the sea dictated every rhythm of life. Fishermen left before dawn, returning only when the sun hung low in the western sky. Children grew up listening to the cries of gulls instead of the noise of cities, and every evening, warm lanterns illuminated narrow cobblestone streets that wound between weathered stone cottages. Visitors often described Ashmore as peaceful. The villagers never used that word. To them, peace was something the sea only pretended to offer. Every family in Ashmore carried stories that stretched back for generations. They spoke of violent storms that appeared without warning, ships that vanished beneath calm waters, and strange melodies that drifted across the waves on moonless nights. Most of these stories were shared openly around fireplaces during the winter. One story never was. Whenever someone mentioned it, voices grew quieter. Eyes turned toward the ocean. Conversations ended. It was simply called the light beyond the sea. No one knew exactly when the legend began. Some claimed it was older than the village itself. Others believed it dated back to an ancient monastery that once stood on an island no longer marked on modern maps. According to the oldest version of the tale, a pale blue light appeared far beyond the cliffs only a few nights each year. It hovered silently above the water, not like a lighthouse, not like a ship, and certainly not like anything natural. The light never moved randomly. It seemed to wait, as though searching for someone. The elders warned that anyone who chose to follow it would return changed, or never return at all. Most people dismissed the story as superstition. Emma never did. She had seen the light with her own eyes. Not once. Not twice. But every year since she was 12 years old. Emma Carter was 22. Unlike nearly everyone else in Ashmore, she had no interest in becoming a fisher. She loved history. Ancient maps fascinated her. Old journals filled with faded handwriting were treasures in her eyes. Whenever the village library received a donation of dusty books from abandoned homes, Emma was always the first person through the door. She believed forgotten stories often contain forgotten truths. Her bedroom overlooked the sea. Every evening she sat beside the open window with a notebook in her lap, listening to waves crash against the cliffs while she copied passages from centuries-old books. The ocean had become the soundtrack of her life. It never truly fell silent. Sometimes its steady rhythm comforted her. Other times, it felt like a voice trying to speak. On a chilly autumn evening, thick fog rolled in from the sea. Within an hour the village disappeared beneath a blanket of mist. The lighthouse became invisible. The harbor vanished. Even the nearest cottages looked like pale shadows. Emma sat beneath a small oil lamp reading a worn leather journal she had discovered hidden behind a loose shelf inside the library archives. The journal belonged to Captain Elias Thorne, a sailor who had lived nearly 200 years earlier. Unlike most captains, Elias hadn't written about trade routes or storms. His journal contained sketches, symbols, star charts, drawings of strange islands, and one phrase repeated over and over again: the beacon. Emma turned another brittle page. Most of the ink had faded beyond recognition. Only one sentence remained perfectly clear. The light does not guide ships. It guides people. She read the sentence again. Then a sudden glow caught her attention. At first she assumed it was lightning hidden behind the fog. But lightning flashed. This glow remained. She slowly stood and walked toward the window. Far beyond the invisible shoreline, something shimmered. A pale blue light floated above the ocean. Silent. Motionless. Beautiful. Her heart skipped. It had returned. Without thinking, Emma rushed downstairs. Her father sat beside the fireplace repairing a fishing net worn by years of salt water. He looked up. "What's wrong?" "It's back." He frowned. "What is?" "The light." The needle slipped from his hand. For several long seconds neither of them spoke. Finally he stood. "Show me." They stepped into the cold night. Fog drifted between the houses like ghostly smoke. Together they climbed the grassy hill overlooking the cliffs. Emma pointed toward the sea. "There." Her father stared. His shoulders slowly stiffened. "I was afraid this day would come." "You've seen it before?" He nodded without taking his eyes off the horizon. "My father showed it to me." "You never told me." "I hope I never would." The blue light remained perfectly still. Watching. Waiting. After nearly a minute, it disappeared without making a sound. Darkness swallowed the sea once more. Emma finally broke the silence. "What is it?" Her father sighed deeply. "I don't know." "That's not true." He looked at her with tired eyes. "I know enough to tell you this. Never follow it." That night sleep refused to come. Emma spread maps across her bedroom floor. Some were modern navigation charts. Others were copies of maps drawn hundreds of years earlier. She compared coastlines, islands, rock formations. Hours passed. Near midnight she noticed something strange. An island appeared on a map drawn in 1734. It was tiny. Barely more than a dot. Written beside it were two faded words. Blackwater Isle. Emma reached for a newer map. The island was gone. She checked another. Nothing. Another. Still nothing. It had simply vanished from history. Yet according to the journal, the mysterious beacon appeared exactly where the island should have been. The following morning Emma visited the village library. Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore had worked there for nearly 40 years. She seemed to know every book ever placed upon its shelves. Emma laid the ancient map on the wooden desk. "I need information about Blackwater Isle." Mrs. Eleanor's smile disappeared. She quietly looked toward the empty reading room. Then she locked the front door. "You should not ask about that place." "So it was real?" The librarian hesitated. "Yes." "What happened to it?" "No one truly knows." Emma leaned closer. "Please." Mrs. Eleanor slowly disappeared into a back room. A few moments later she returned carrying an old wooden box covered in dust. She opened it carefully. Inside were faded letters, a cracked compass, several sketches, and a thin handwritten manuscript. "I've kept this hidden for years." "Why?" "Because curiosity can be dangerous." Emma picked up one of the sketches. It showed an island surrounded by towering cliffs. At its highest point stood a circular stone monastery overlooking the sea. The drawing was remarkably detailed. Even the windows had been carefully shaded. Who lived there? Monks. Religious monks? Not exactly. Mrs. Eleanor sat down slowly. They were scholars. They studied history, the stars, the tides, The seasons. They believed the universe spoke true patterns. Emma listened without interrupting. They spent centuries recording strange events. What kind of events? Mrs. Eleanor's voice lowered. The appearance of the beacon. According to the manuscript, Blackwater Isle had been one of the most isolated places in the region. Only a handful of boats ever visited. The monks preferred solitude. They welcomed travelers but rarely left the island themselves. Their greatest responsibility was guarding a chamber beneath the monastery. No one outside the order knew what it contained. Legends claimed it held an ancient object discovered long before the monastery existed. Others believed it was a library filled with knowledge lost to the world. Every generation added another version to the story. Then, one winter morning nearly 900 years ago, a fishing crew arrived with supplies. The monastery was silent. Every door stood open. The fires had burned out. Meals remained untouched upon wooden tables. Beds were empty. Books lay scattered across the stone floor. Yet there wasn't a single body. Not one monk remained. It was as though every person had vanished at exactly the same moment. No footprints. No signs of violence. No explanation. Within months, strange blue lights began appearing around the abandoned island. Fishermen refused to sail nearby. Years became decades. Storms altered the coastline. Trade routes changed. Eventually, mapmakers stopped drawing Blackwater Isle altogether. It slowly faded into legend. Until almost no one remembered it had ever existed. Emma closed the manuscript. Do you believe the story? Mrs. Eleanor answered without hesitation. Yes. Why? Because my grandfather followed the light. Emma froze. What happened? He disappeared for 11 days. And when he came back, he refused to speak about what he'd seen. Did he ever tell anyone anything? Only one sentence. What was it? Mrs. Eleanor looked directly into Emma's eyes. He said, "Some doors are not meant to be opened until someone is ready to change the world." Emma felt a chill despite the warmth of the library. Something inside her whispered that the story wasn't over. It was only beginning. As she stepped outside, a cold wind swept across the cliffs. Far beyond the endless horizon. Hidden beneath the afternoon sunlight. Something waited. And for the first time in her life, Emma realized the mysterious light might not simply be calling to anyone. It might be calling to her. Part 3. The Keeper of the Monastery. Emma held her breath. The footsteps echoed once. Twice. Then stopped. The silence that followed was even more unsettling. She slowly lifted her lantern, its warm light stretching across the cracked stone floor. Shadows danced along the ancient walls, revealing faded murals covered in dust and moss. The paintings showed monks standing beneath a sky full of stars, each one holding a glowing blue lantern. The same blue light. The beacon. Emma took another careful step. The hallway opened into a vast circular chamber lined with towering bookshelves. Although centuries had supposedly passed since anyone had lived here, hundreds of books remained perfectly arranged. Not one had rotted. Not one had fallen apart. It was as though time had forgotten this room. Her father whispered, "How is any of this possible?" Emma didn't answer. She walked toward one of the shelves and gently removed a thick leather-bound volume. The cover bore no title. Inside were hand-drawn maps of the heavens. Every page contained detailed observations of stars, eclipses, and constellations recorded over hundreds of years. But what caught Emma's attention was the final page. Written in elegant handwriting were the words, "The beacon awakens only when the world is ready to remember." A sudden gust of cold air swept through the chamber. The pages flipped wildly on their own. The lantern flickered. Then, a calm voice echoed through the library. "You finally came." Emma spun around. An old man stood at the far end of the room. He wore a long grey robe unlike anything she had ever seen. His silver hair reached his shoulders, and his face carried countless wrinkles, yet his posture was perfectly straight. His eyes were bright. Far too bright for someone his age. Emma instinctively stepped back. "Who are you?" The old man smiled gently. "My name has been forgotten. I have simply become the keeper." Her father looked stunned. "That's impossible. The monastery has been abandoned for centuries." The keeper nodded. "To the outside world?" "Yes." He walked slowly between the towering shelves. "You measure life by years. We measure it by purpose." Emma frowned. "What does that mean?" Instead of answering, the keeper pointed toward the window. "Tell me. What do you see?" Emma looked outside. The ocean. And beyond it? The horizon. The keeper smiled. "Exactly. You believe the horizon is the end because that is all you can see. But reality is often much larger than our vision." The keeper led them through a series of stone corridors deeper beneath the monastery. Each hallway became older than the last. The walls changed from carefully carved stone to rough natural rock. Eventually they reached a massive circular door made of dark metal. It had no handle. No keyhole. Only a single blue crystal embedded in its center. Emma immediately recognized it. It glowed with the exact same color as the mysterious light above the sea. "The beacon," she whispered. The keeper nodded. "Only a fragment." He placed his hand upon the crystal. It pulsed softly. The enormous door opened without making a sound. Beyond it lay a chamber unlike anything Emma had ever imagined. The ceiling disappeared into darkness high above. Thousands of tiny blue lights floated in the air like stars. Ancient stone pillars surrounded a perfectly smooth pool of water at the center of the room. Yet the water reflected not the ceiling, but the night sky. Emma stared in disbelief. "It's daytime." The keeper smiled. "Not here." She stepped closer. The reflection wasn't a reflection at all. The stars moved. Constellations shifted. Comets crossed the sky. It was as though she were looking into another world. "What is this place?" Emma asked. The keeper answered quietly. "This chamber existed long before the monastery. The monks merely became its guardians." "Guardians of what?" He pointed toward the pool. "Memory." Emma looked confused. The keeper continued. "Every civilization believes history exists inside books. It doesn't. History exists inside people. Inside choices. Inside memories. When knowledge disappears, civilizations repeat the same mistakes." Emma listened carefully. The beacon was created to protect humanity's greatest lessons. Not treasures. Not gold. But wisdom. The keeper walked toward the center of the chamber. For thousands of years, When kingdoms rose. When kingdoms fell. When libraries burned. When wars destroyed entire civilizations. The beacon preserved what humanity was about to lose. Emma slowly realized what he meant. That's why people disappear. They become keepers. The old man smiled. Sometimes. Not always. Her father finally spoke. Why Emma? Why call her? The keeper looked at Emma for a long moment. Because she listened. What? The beacon does not search for the smartest person. It does not search for the strongest. It searches for those who ask questions. For those willing to seek truth instead of comfort. Emma felt her heart racing. All her life she had wondered why the light appeared to her. Now she finally had an answer. The keeper raised his hand. The pool began glowing brighter. Its surface rippled. Images slowly appeared. Emma gasped. She saw enormous ancient cities. Great libraries filled with scholars. Stone temples beneath unfamiliar stars. Explorers crossing vast oceans. Inventors building impossible machines. Children laughing in villages long erased from history. Then the images changed. Wars. Fire. Collapsed kingdoms. Floods. Plagues. Civilizations disappearing one after another. Thousands of years passed in only moments. Tears formed in Emma's eyes. So much has been forgotten. The keeper nodded. Exactly. Suddenly, the images stopped. The water became still. A new image appeared. Ashmore. Emma's village. People walking through its streets. Children playing near the harbor. Her father repairing fishing nets. Mrs. Eleanor organizing books. Everything looked peaceful. Then, dark clouds gathered. The sea rose. A gigantic storm approached the coastline. Waves crashed over the harbor. Buildings collapsed. The lighthouse disappeared beneath the ocean. Emma's face turned pale. No. The keeper spoke calmly. This is one possible future. Can it be stopped? Perhaps. How? He looked directly into her eyes. That depends on the choice you make. The chamber fell silent. Emma suddenly understood why no one had forced anyone to become a keeper. The beacon never demanded. It only offered knowledge, responsibility, a choice. The old man walked toward a stone pedestal. Resting upon it was a small crystal no larger than her hand. It glowed softly with blue light. This is the heart of the beacon. If you accept it, you will remember everything this place has protected. But there is a price. Emma whispered. What price? The keeper's expression became solemn. You can never return to your old life unchanged. She looked toward her father. He understood immediately. Some journeys ended with returning home. Others changed home forever. Emma took one slow step toward the glowing crystal. The chamber became completely silent. As her fingers reached toward the heart of the beacon, the entire monastery suddenly trembled. A deep rumble echoed beneath the island. Dust fell from the ceiling. The blue lights flickered violently. The keeper's calm expression disappeared for the first time. They found us. Emma looked around. Who? The old man turned toward the enormous stone doorway. His voice became barely a whisper. The ones who have searched for the beacon. For centuries. The chamber trembled again. Dust drifted from the ancient ceiling, and the thousands of blue lights suspended in the darkness flickered like frightened stars. Emma looked toward the enormous stone doorway. Heavy footsteps echoed through the underground halls. Not one pair. Many. The keeper closed his eyes for a brief moment, as though he had expected this day for a very long time. They have finally arrived, he said quietly. Her father stepped in front of Emma. Who are they? The keeper slowly turned. They call themselves the Order of Dominion. They believe knowledge should belong only to those who hold power. For centuries they have searched for the beacon. They have found every clue. But never the door. Emma frowned. Why now? The keeper smiled sadly. Because you opened the path. Moments later, several figures emerged through the ancient doorway. They wore long black coats soaked from the sea, their faces hidden beneath dark hoods. Each carried a strange lantern that burned with a cold white flame. Their leader stepped forward. Unlike the others, he removed his hood. His hair was silver despite his youthful face. His eyes were calm, almost emotionless. So, he said, looking around the chamber. The legends were true. His gaze settled on Emma. And you've already found the heart. The keeper walked between them. You will not take it. The leader sighed. I've heard those words before. He looked around the chamber with admiration. Imagine what humanity could become if only a few brilliant minds control all knowledge. The keeper replied. Knowledge without compassion becomes tyranny. The leader smiled. We disagree. With a simple gesture, his followers spread throughout the chamber. Emma noticed that none of them attacked. They searched. Measured. Observed. They were scholars as much as soldiers. The leader continued. For centuries mankind has repeated the same mistakes. Wars. Famine. Ignorance. Wouldn't it be better if one enlightened order guided civilization? Emma answered before the keeper could. Guided. Or controlled? The man looked directly at her. Sometimes there is no difference. The keeper turned to Emma. Remember what I told you. The beacon does not choose rulers. It chooses guardians. The leader laughed softly. Guardians preserve the past. I intend to shape the future. His eyes shifted toward the glowing crystal resting on the pedestal. The heart belongs to us. Without warning, one of the hooded figures rushed toward the pedestal. The moment his hand touched the crystal, a brilliant wave of blue light exploded across the chamber. The force threw everyone backward. The man's lantern shattered. He collapsed unconscious before he even reached the floor. Silence returned. The heart cannot be taken. It must be accepted. The leader narrowed his eyes. So the stories were accurate. He turned toward Emma. It has chosen you. Emma remained silent. For the first time, she understood the weight of that sentence. This was never about finding treasure. It was never about solving an ancient mystery. It was about responsibility. The keeper approached the pedestal. He carefully lifted the glowing crystal. Instead of keeping it, he held it out toward Emma. The choice is yours. If you refuse, The beacon will sleep once more. If you accept, I will become the last keeper. And you will become the next. Emma stared at the crystal. It pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat. Her thoughts raced. She thought of her quiet village. The fisherman who greeted every sunrise. Mrs. Eleanor protecting forgotten books. Her father patiently repairing nets beside the fire. She remembered every story she had ever read. Every question she had ever asked. Every mystery she had ever wanted to solve. She finally understood something. Knowledge was never meant to make one person powerful. It was meant to help everyone become wiser. Slowly, she reached forward. Her fingers touched the crystal. The chamber filled with light. Not blinding. Warm. Gentle. The floating stars above them began moving in perfect harmony. The pool at the center shimmered like liquid glass. Thousands of voices whispered at once. Not loudly. Softly. As if generations of humanity were sharing their memories together. Emma saw ancient civilizations rise. She watched languages being born. She witnessed artists painting masterpieces. Scientists making discoveries. Children learning to read. Communities rebuilding after disasters. Every act of kindness. Every lesson learned. Every mistake that had shaped humanity. None of it disappeared. It had all been remembered. When the light finally faded, Emma stood exactly where she had been. But she no longer felt the same. She understood things she had never studied. She recognized constellations she had never seen. She could read symbols carved into the monastery walls without effort. The beacon had shared its memory. Not to make her all-knowing, but to remind her that every generation inherits the responsibility of protecting truth. Across the chamber, the leader of the order stared in disbelief. You've changed. Emma smiled gently. No. I've remembered. For the first time, uncertainty appeared on his face. He looked around the chamber. The blue lights slowly began fading. The keeper nodded with quiet satisfaction. It is done. The ancient man turned toward Emma. My work has ended. His body gradually became transparent, like morning mist beneath the rising sun. Emma stepped forward. Wait. I still have so many questions. The keeper smiled. You always will. That is why you were chosen. With those final words, he disappeared. Not with a flash. Not with magic. Simply. Like someone finishing a very long journey. The monastery began to change. Stone walls cracked. Ancient halls slowly dissolved into drifting light. The island itself seemed to awaken. The leader of the order lowered his head. He finally understood. The beacon could never belong to anyone. It answered only to those willing to protect knowledge, not possess it. Without another word, he and his followers quietly left the chamber. Emma and her father returned to their small boat before sunrise. As they sailed away, Blackwater Owl slowly disappeared into the morning mist. Within minutes, it was gone. Exactly as it had vanished from every map centuries before. Only endless ocean remained. Her father looked at her. Will anyone believe us? Emma smiled. They don't have to. Life in Ashmore continued much as before. Fishing boats left every morning. Children laughed along the harbor. Lanterns glowed warmly each evening. Emma returned to the village library. She became its new historian, carefully preserving every old journal, map, and forgotten story. Whenever someone asked why ancient history mattered so much, she would simply smile and answer, "Because tomorrow is built from what yesterday remembers." Years later, people sometimes reported seeing a soft blue light far beyond the cliffs. Most dismissed it as a trick of the moon. Others called it another old legend. Emma never corrected them. On quiet evenings, she would stand alone at the edge of the cliffs, watching the endless sea. The light would appear for only a few moments. It no longer called to her. It simply reminded her. Some mysteries are not meant to be solved. They are meant to be protected. And somewhere beyond the horizon, hidden from every map, where the sea met the stars, the beacon continued its silent watch, waiting for the next curious soul.